Hi everyone, it's Dawn coming to you from Decoupage Digital Designs. Today's video is going to be a Q&A video. I get a lot of questions that people ask about anything decoupage, from bottles to nightlights, wine stoppers, shells, resin, UV lights, you name it. I get the questions. So I thought what I would do is compile all the questions that I can think of that have been asked of me, or that something that newbies would ask, and I thought that I would go ahead and make a video on it, hopefully to answer the questions. If you have a question that I have not addressed, you can always drop it in the comments or message me, and I will be happy to answer it. Just think that this is an easy way to get the questions answered. These questions are not in any particular order. I'm just going to go through them as I have them here, and they will talk about a lot of different things, and again, nothing is in order. So the first thing is, how do you order rice papers and bottle toppers? What you would do is go to the main page at Decoupage Digital Design, and you would click on the albums tab, and when that opens up, you'll see a bunch of other categorized folders with bottle toppers and rice paper images, and you click on whatever it is that you're looking for. You write down the item number, and then you would message Penny with your order. So how do you message Penny? So you go to the main page, Decoupage Digital Designs, and on the top of the page, you'll go to the little search icon, and you will type Penny's name in, and then you'll be able to see where you can just send her a message. And that's how you would go ahead and place your order. Okay, so do you resin before you add rhinestones and embellishments, or after? So when you apply rhinestones, now I've talked about before that if anybody's done diamond art, they have those little leftover diamond dots. I use those a lot on my shells, and I also use embellishments. And what you would do is you would go ahead and put your little diamond dots or your rhinestones on your shells. You would glue them on with whatever glue of your choice, and then you would go ahead and apply either your triple thick or your UV resin. It will then let it adhere for very permanently. As far as embellishments go, I usually put an embellishment on with like a hot glue, and then when I am applying my resin, I just make sure I don't go over the embellishment, the bigger embellishment. I just take my resin and get it under the embellishment as good as I can. I just feel that adding a little bit of resin to that and curing it will hold that embellishment much better than hot glue. You can try E6000. I think that's probably more permanent than hot glue, but I also feel much more comfortable with resin. So that's how I do mine. Now, there might be these questions, there might be other solutions or other answers to these questions. I'm just telling you what I've researched and what I do. If I have a question here that I really didn't have the information for, I researched it so that I can give it to you. Okay, other than UV resin, what can I use to give a shine on my shells? If you don't want to get involved with using UV resin, you can use the triple thick. Triple thick comes in a container, you brush it on. Some people want to know if it yellows. I have not had a problem with it yellowing. Now I know there's a spray, and I think people having more problems with the yellowing with the spray. But I have used the triple thick brush on in the past. It gives just as nice of a shine, and it works great. You can do 1 or 2 coats. So triple thick brush on is an alternative to using UV resin. Does it yellow? I went through that. What if my shells are still tacky after I cure them? I think it depends on where you live and your surroundings. There's several different other elements that attribute to your resin curing. So I live in Florida and it's very humid. When I do my shells or anything that I have to use UV resin on, I usually cure it under the light for about 3 minutes. And again, it depends on, you know, your surroundings and other elements, but 3 minutes. And if at any point your shell or whatever you're using UV resin on feels tacky, you can always put it back under the light as many times as you need. Can you put shells in the sunlight with UV resin? Yes, you can. Again, I live in Florida. I mean, I could pile my shells outside to cure in the sunlight rather than using the light. But we never know when it's going to rain. It could be sunny one moment and then the rain just comes down. I don't put my stuff in the sunlight, but yes, you can use the natural sunlight to cure your UV resin projects. What do you do with imperfections on your shells? So a lot of times when you get your shells, like the scallop shells, you might have some chips around the sides, or you know, one side is a little uneven. Me personally, I don't do anything with the imperfections. I leave them exactly the way that they are. I like the imperfections. I think it shows more of the natural of the shells. But if you have some sharp edges or some edges that are really uneven and bothering you, you can always use some type of a nail file or a fine grit sandpaper, and you can file it down. What type of UV light should I be using? So the UV light that you need to use, now I had looked this information up so that I could give you exactly what is needed. So you need a UV light between 365 nm to 405 nm, and that is nanometers. So wavelength of 365 nm to 405 nm with a minimum of 24 to 36 watts. That is the wattage and type of wavelength that they are suggesting that you use to cure your UV resin. Do you paint the inside of the shell before you decoupage? Yes. I use 2 coats of chalk paint or gesso inside my shell. You can also use acrylic paint, but I choose to use the chalk paint or gesso. The chalk paint and the gesso is like a primer, but it's also white, so it looks like a white paint, and it has something in it that you know, has an adhesion, so that it makes things that you put on it adhere better. I have always used a lot of chalk paint to paint the inside of my shells, and I've not had a problem with anything adhering. But you can use gesso or chalk paint or even acrylic paint, and I do 2 coats. When doing night lights, what side of the shell do you paint? I paint both sides. I do 2 coats on the outside of the shell and 2 coats on the inside of the shell. I use chalk paint. You can also use acrylic paint. But when doing night lights, I do 2 coats inside, 2 coats outside. Some people do not paint the inside of their shell. I don't like the way that looks. So I choose to do the 2 coats on the inside and the outside. When doing night lights, does painting the inside of the shell diffuse the light? No, it does not. Painting the shell inside and outside does not affect the function of the light at all. And like I was saying before, if I don't like the way it looks when it's not painted on the inside. It's very transparent. First of all, when you do turn your night lights on at night in a dark room, they are very functional. The functionality of them is wonderful. They do work. The only thing is that when they are on at night in a dark room, you're not going to see the image as you see it when you're looking at the shell during the day. It is a little bit transparent. You can't really see the image very well, but that is just the way it is. And at night, you're basically wanting it for the light, so that doesn't bother me. And then during the day, it looks like pretty decor. So, but painting the inside of the shell, because when you do a nightlight, you do the decorating on the outside of the shell. The inside of the shell is where the bulb goes, the light fixture, and it does not affect the light coming through at all. What do you use to cover up the black dot in the oyster shell? I've never had a problem with the black dot showing through my paint on the oyster shell. All I do is, like I said earlier, is do 2 coats of either gesso or 2 coats of white chalk paint, and it covers it right up. If you do 1 coat, you might still be able to see it, and then it might come through on your image, depending. If you're using a napkin, it's probably going to come through more so than if you're using rice paper. But I have found that 2 coats of gesso or chalk paint takes care of that black spot on the oyster shell. Do you use paint or chrome markers to trim your shell before or after resin? I personally do it after. I've done it both ways. If you do your paint or chrome markers to edge, or as they call gild, the edge of your shell, if you do it before you add your resin or your triple thick, there is a chance, and it has happened to me, there is a chance that that paint or that marker will bleed into your image, and that has happened to me. Also too, I find that if you do it before you add your triple thick or resin, it does dull the shine a little bit. So I have been now for quite a while is I do my edging of my shells after I apply my resin. After the resin is on and it's cured, I go ahead and trim my shells with either paint or the chrome markers. I personally use chrome markers. I don't use paint anymore around my edges. Now that I've made my shells, what can I use them for? Well, there's several different things you can use your shells for. You can make trinket dishes out of them. You can make those 2 or 3 tier stands. I have yet to make those. You can make magnets out of them. You can put them in display stands and just have them as a display, like a shelf sitter. You can use them for night lights. You can use them for wine stoppers. You can use them for ornaments. So there's several different things that you can use them for. What stands can I use for my shells? You can use wood easels. You can use the plastic easels, which come in clear, black, gold, or silver. And I get the 3-inch ones, and I do shells that are anywhere from 3 to 5 inches, and the 3-inch easel stands work well. You can find those on Amazon. They're wood or plastic. You can also use the crystal ball stands. Those come in the silver and gold. You can get those from Amazon. Or I have not done this, but people use like pearl beads to make like little legs or feet on their shell. You would just glue them onto the shell. So those are the different types of ways that you can use stands or the pearl beads to make legs for your shells. Do you need gloves or a mask when using UV resin? Yes, 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 yes. You need to get gloves, but not just any gloves. You need to get nitrile gloves, if I'm saying that right, Nitrile. You can get them off of Amazon. I happen to have a friend that works in a doctor's office, and she gets them for me all the time. The suggestion is to use a respirator and not a regular mask. Personally, I have not used a respirator. I have used one of those, N95 masks. Do your research on that. If you choose to use UV resin, I'm not going to tell you what it is you need to do or not to do. I'm just giving you the suggestion of what has been said and what my research shows. And again, I use the nitrile gloves, and I use a mask, but I do not use a respirator. But again, if you choose to use UV resin, do your research. How do you get wrinkles out of when you're using napkins and rice paper when you're doing your shells? Plastic wrap, you rub them out, you take a piece of plastic wrap when you lay your image down, and you use the plastic wrap. You can ball it up, you can lay it flat, and you just use the plastic wrap to rub out your wrinkles. That seems to help. It's don't use your finger to do it. You'll tear your napkin, you'll mess it all up. The plastic wrap seems to work. And the only other thing I can tell you is practice, practice, practice. How do you store your finished shells? Personally, I'm going to tell you how I store mine. I mean, you can store them. What I would do first is after you do your shells, and you add your top coat of whatever it is, Mod Podge resin, triple thick, whatever sealer that you use, I would let them sit out and cure for quite a bit of days. I let mine sit out for a week or so. I like to make sure they're really cured. What you can do is you can put wax paper or parchment paper in between them if you're going to stack them together. Personally, what I do is after they're cured, I put them individually, one individual, one in organza bags, which I get from Amazon. They're cheap and you can get a lot of them. And I put one shell per organza bag, and then I just stack my organza bags, the shells on top of one another, and I have not had a problem with them sticking or anything like that. But you have to make sure that your shell is not, sticky, has, tacky leftover resin that hasn't cured. And you have to make sure they're really cured to do that. Again, I'm not going to give you an exact day, how many days or time that it takes for them to fully cure. I just know that after I do my shells, they do sit out in my craft room on my counter for at least a week or so. And when I put them away, I make sure that there is no tackiness to them at all. And again, like I said, I have not had any problems whatsoever. So as far as your curing time, you're going to have to, just check and make sure that they're not tacky before you store them. Again, I live in a very humid state and things take a little bit longer for me here. Okay, can I use diamond dust on my shells, and when do I apply? Yes, you can use diamond dust. Now, diamond dust it's a beautiful addition to your decorating, but it is real shards of glass, so you need to be careful when you use it. And what you would do is you would apply it after your resin. So what I do is I put my resin, spread my resin on my shell, and then I take my diamond dust and I sprinkle it on, and then I put it under the light to cure. I put my diamond dust in a little shaker bottle. It makes it easier to distribute, but I first apply my resin, and before it goes under the light, I sprinkle my diamond dust on it and then cure it under the light. If you put too much diamond dust, it is going to just kind of melt into the resin, and you'll see it, but it will just kind of just be a little bit of a blob. So do it sparingly. A lot of diamond dust goes a long way, but that's when I apply it, after my resin, but before I cure it. It's got to be, the resin has to be, tacky before you put your, in order for the diamond dust to stick. What glue works for embellishments? Well, you can use whatever glue is your preference. You can use E6000 works. You can use a UV resin bonding glue, which I love. I use that. You can use regular UV resin, and you can use hot glue. Now, hot glue is not going to be good for duration. I mean, after a bit of time, I think that it will pop off very easily with the hot glue. What I do with those embellishments, I hot glue them on just to get them on where I want them, and then I go ahead and use my UV resin bonding glue, and I squirt it in underneath where the embellishment is, and then I stick it under the UV light, or I attach it with the hot glue, and then I use my regular UV resin when I'm resining the shell, and then I make sure that I get some of that resin underneath the embellishment, and then stick it under the light. What light fixture to use for night lights? There are a couple different fixtures that you can use. There are some that are the actual flat night light that you can glue onto the shell. I really don't have any information on that because I haven't used those. I use the nightlight fixtures that have the plastic extender. They also have ones that have a metal piece that goes with it, I guess a metal extender. I don't use the metal ones. I have used the plastic ones. I have made tons and tons of nightlights. I always use the fixture that comes with the plastic extender, and I've had no problems with that at all, and you can get those from Amazon. When making nightlights, which side do you use? You can actually use either the back part of the shell or the inside of the shell. I have seen it done both ways. Me personally, I think it's a little tough to decorate the inside of the shell and then attach the outside of the shell to the fixture. I've seen people do it. I have not done it that way. I always decorate the outside of my shell for nightlights, and use the inner part of the shell to attach the fixture. When making nightlights, do you resin the side of the shell that has the bulb? I don't. I have seen where people have put resin on the outside of the shell and on the inside of the shell. I do not do that for no particular reason. I just don't see a need to put the resin on. Even though I use bulbs that don't produce heat, I don't like the idea of the resin being on the inside of the shell. But I guess some people do it on both sides to make the shell really look finished. I don't see the need to do that personally. So I don't resin the inside of my shell for nightlights. I only resin the outside that has the design on it. What bulbs do you use for nightlights, and are they safe? The bulbs that I use are LED lights. They're little bulbs. I get them from Amazon. They are made by Brighttown, BRIGHTTOWN. They are C7 bulbs for E12 holder. Okay, there's 8 of them in a box. Don't remember the cost. I did get them on Amazon. Again, they're Brighttown C7 bulbs for E12 holder. Like I said, you can find them on Amazon, but I have used regular lights in them, but I like to stick with these lights because they're LED and they do not let off any heat. Some people feel funny about, because to attach the fixture to the shell, you have to use resin to attach it, and some people, I think, don't like the idea of having a bulb that heats up near the resin. I don't think there has been an issue of that, of any sort, but again, I use the LED lights, bulbs. They do not throw off any heat. Are the night lights functional? Yes, they are very, very functional. Like I said earlier, even with being painted inside, some people think that paint is going to diffuse the light from coming through. It does not. They work extremely well. For wine stoppers, which stoppers do you use? The ones with the holes or no holes? You can use both. Both work. The only ones that I have used are the ones with the hole, and it works for me, so I will continue to use those. I don't have a problem, but if you do get the ones with the hole, you absolutely need to fill that hole with hot glue before you attach your shell. So I have videos on how to do night lights that you can find here on our page, also on YouTube. You fill the hole with hot glue, and then you attach, and then I put a blob and attach my shell just to put it in place. But then I go ahead and I use my UV resin and build it up all around the shell. And again, there is a video tutorial on that. But if you don't fill that hole with hot glue, that UV resin is going to seep down into the hole, and it's going to come out through the rubber part of the wine stopper. It has not happened to me because I researched and watched so many videos and asked so many questions from Facebook groups about making wine stoppers and the do's and don'ts, that I never had the issue because I knew what to do beforehand. So if you're going to do wine stoppers, you can use the stoppers that have the hole or not. But if you get the ones with the holes, don't be afraid to use them. Just make sure you fill that hole to the top with hot glue before you attach your shell with resin. It'll work with no problem. What glue do you use to adhere the stopper? Okay, so like I said, I use hot glue to get my shell in place, just so that it's on there. And then I go ahead and take my UV resin and I go ahead and build up around the sides of the shell. I break it down into 4 sides, the front, the 2 sides, and the back. And then I build up the resin all around and keep curing it under the light. And again, there is a tutorial on that you can watch. If I'm making magnets, which magnets to use and how to attach the magnets? The best magnets to use for the shells, they are called neodymium. Yeah, that's how you say it. I wasn't sure how to say it, but it's neodymium. They are N52 grade. They are very strong magnets. And instead of going through the problem of just getting your regular old magnets that you find in your craft store, and you put them on and then find out that you go to stick it on the refrigerator and they just slide off and fall to the ground, I'm telling you ahead of time, if you get these magnets, they're silver, they're very strong magnets, you probably won't have any trouble at all. So you would find those on Amazon. I mean, that's at least where I found them. And it's neodymium, or just put in the search bar on Amazon, strong magnets, N52 grade. You can attach them with hot glue. So I do the hot glue to stabilize it and get it where I want it. And then I take my UV bonding glue and I go all around the outside of the magnet and cure it under the light. You could also probably have them stick on with E6000 if you want to sit there and hold it on the shell for a few minutes. Go right ahead and use that. But even if you do use the E6000, I would first glue it into place with hot glue so that it's on the shell, and then just go around the whole magnet. And again, the UV, Let's Resin is the brand I use, the UV bonding glue. You can also use regular resin, but it has to be cured under the light. But if you do it that way, the magnet is staying on forever. It's not going anywhere. But those are the magnets you need to use. How do you hang keychains and ornaments? Like, how do you put the ribbon on? So there's 2 ways you can do it. Most people drill a hole. If you're going to make magnets or keychains, they drill a hole in the shell and then, put their keychain pieces on there, or their ribbon or twine if they're making ornaments. So if you want to drill holes, you use a diamond tipped drill bit, 1 millimeter to 2.5 millimeters. That's what's suggested to use. Personally, I did not want to bother with drilling holes and making all that mess. So what I do is I use jewelry bales. I get, the jewelry bales off of Amazon, and then I go ahead and I attach it to the top of the back of the shell where I'm, want to hang a ribbon or put my keychain accessories on there. And what I do is I, again, glue it on with some hot glue just to get it in the place I need it. And then I use my UV resin or my UV bonding resin glue, and I build it up around the bail, and then I stick it under the UV light. I find that is easier, it's less messy, and it stays with absolutely no problem. I have sold keychains, I have made a lot of Christmas ornaments, and I've had no problem whatsoever. So instead of going through the trouble of drilling and finding the right bit and making a mess, you can glue the joy bells. And I do have a video on how to make keychains and ornaments on our page here or on YouTube. So you can check that out and see how to attach the jewelry bells. If you mess up your shell, can you salvage it? Yes, you can. As long as you haven't put resin or triple thick on it, or a type of sealer like that, you can go ahead and stick your shell under hot soapy water, and it'll come off. You know, you just scrub it off a little bit, and your shell is as good as new to start over again. How do you get your air dry clay not to stick in your molds? There's a few things you can do with that. You can give your molds a very, very light dusting of cornstarch. Even baby powder will work. Or you can do a very, very, very light coating, very light, of some baby oil or olive oil with a paintbrush, and do a very light coating. And then you pop it in the freezer for about 30 to 40 minutes. More ornate, intricate molds I would keep in for 40 minutes plus. If you forget they're in there, and they're in there for hours, even if they're in there overnight, it doesn't matter. It's not going to ruin them. Again, I have a tutorial on clay and clay molds. You can check that out. I personally don't do the dusting or the oil. I just use my mold, and when the clay is in the mold, I pop it in the freezer, and after about 20-30 minutes I take it out of the freezer and they pop right out. I don't use the cornstarch or the baby oil, but a lot of people do, so that is your options for that. Do you have to seal your clay molds? Yes, you should seal your clay molds with some Mod Podge after you get your molds on your shells or your bottles. You really need to put a coat of Mod Podge on them to seal them. It just protects them. Do you have, do you have to prep your bottle before painting? Yes, you should always prep your bottle before painting, and there's 2 ways to do that. And again, I have a whole bottle series of tutorials right here on this page or on YouTube. You can prep your bottle 2 ways. You would wipe your bottle down with alcohol, and then you would either do a coat of Mod Podge, let that dry, and then do a coat of gesso, or you can just use a combination spray paint, primer, and paint. Matte or satin finish, it doesn't matter because you're going to paint over it anyway. I used to do the Mod Podge gesso method, but for quite a bit now I've been using just 2 coats of the spray paint primer, and I've had not any issues at all, and it cuts down the drying time. Instead of having to wait a couple of hours after prepping my bottle, I spray the 2 coats of spray paint primer, and within 15-20 minutes I can go ahead and start decorating my bottle. If you mess up your bottle and it's already painted, can you salvage it? Yes, you can. Again, as long as there's not a heavy, I guess, varnish or sealant on it, which I have messed up a bottle and I didn't have any sealant on it. I didn't even have clay molds on it, but I have put it under hot water and some soap, and I've used just a little scraper, and it scrapes right off. It's got to soak for a little bit, but it comes right off. So you can, you don't have to throw your bottle in the garbage. You can just start over with it. How do you get labels off the bottle? Well, you can look online. There are many different ways to get your labels off the bottles. I personally just run them under hot water and use some soap and use a scraper, and they come right off. My husband usually does it for me, but there's a few different ways you can do it. Just go online and check it out. And then you would just wipe it down with alcohol to get the rest of the glue, the sticky glue stuff off. Do you have to seal your bottles when you're done? Yes, you should. You should be sealing your bottles with some kind of a sealer, a spray sealer, or a varnish. I use a varnish just to coat the bottle, just to protect the paint a little bit more. Can you sell your decoupage items? Yes, you can sell your decoupage items. You know, it's just, you know, not to sell anybody's images that aren't your own images, but you can use any images you want, and you can definitely sell all your decoupage items. How to clean your paintbrushes. I'm bad about this, but to get the paint off of your brushes, you rinse out the excess paint, and then with the hottest water you can stand with some dish soap, just go ahead and, you know, spread through the, you know, the brush bristles, and, you know, get that soap and that hot water through it, and then just rinse them out really good. And that should take care of getting rid of the paint. Mod Podge. If you use Mod Podge, you can, if you immediately wash your brushes, if you immediately walk away from your project and go wash your brushes immediately with warm water and Dawn dish soap. I think any dish soap would work, but Dawn dish soap seems to work for everything. But if you do it right away, you can usually, that way to wash off the brushes will usually take the Mod Podge right off. If they are dried and stiff, you're probably best, what they say to do is soak it in hand sanitizer or rubbing alcohol for about 10 minutes. And then you'll have to take like a brush, you know, a brush to get through the bristles, to get the dried up stuff off. So instead of going through all that trouble, if you just took a break real quick and just rinse them real quick, it comes right off with soap and water. And the last question I have here is, how do I price my stuff? Some people ask me about that. And honestly, that's all you. You have to consider your time, your materials, your location. I sell at local craft shows. And I keep my items very affordable. I don't charge a lot for my items at all. Unfortunately, as crafters, we don't get paid for our time that we put into our craft. For me, if I make back, you know, my material cost, I'm happy. You know, this is a hobby for me, and I enjoy doing it. So if I can make my material cost back, I'm happy with that. But for the most part, you know, sometimes it's also where you're located, you know, to dictate what your price range is, you know, what people are looking for. And it's always hit and miss. You never know what people are looking for to buy. So I can't ever really give somebody a price. I mean, I've seen people sell shells and bottles for, you know, a very low cost all the way up to a very high cost, and both say, you know, they sell them. So for me, like I said, my items, I don't charge much at all. I keep it at a very low cost, and I'm happy with that. I do sell a lot of stuff, and I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing because it's working. So that's it for today. I just wanted to, it's a little bit of a long video, but I think I covered a lot of questions. If there's anything I didn't mention, just drop it in the comments or message me. I'm happy to answer any questions at all, and I hope this helped. And again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.